Thank you for the introduction. I'm very happy that we have such a great panel with us today. I think fintech is a hot potato topic these days, and that's a potato that nobody wants to drop. I think it's fundamentally changing the way we're doing business and how business is going to be looking in the future. We all know currency evolved as something that was essentially commodities or barters, and that it's gone to wire transfers. And then, of course, the last second half of the last century has seen innovations like credit cards and internet banking, etc., especially the internet age, which has driven the way the financial world works to a completely different level. But of late, in the last few years, fintech is taking center stage, and obviously it's changing fundamentally the concept of how even currency works. We are hearing about crypto and digital all over the place, but it's not just that. It's even in areas, even in supporting technology such as blockchains, with smart contracts coming up, with the possibility, for example, of using blockchain for ensuring that the entire cycle of payments is tracked and logged. Think about the kind of benefits it can bring to tax payments. So with that, I'd like to kind of kick off a quick round of self-introductions from the panel. And, I'd request you to talk a little bit about yourself, your organization, but most importantly, about how you think fintech has had an impact, A, on the way you do business, and B, on the way how you think that business overall is evolving. So if I can request, just in the order I see you on the screen, can I request Rohit to kick that off, please?
Great. Thank you so much, Prasar. Very nice to be here. Thank you for inviting us. So let me very quickly introduce Clear, which is our new name. We used to be known as ClearTax earlier, and that's very simply because we want to do a lot more than taxes in our next phase of growth. So fundamentally, Clear is a company that is making software and SaaS products for four things: invoices, taxes, payments, and credit. Right. So those are the four fundamental pillars on which our company stands. And as of now, for those of you who don't know the company, we serve a few million consumers, so like 2 to 5 million consumers every year for a lot of their income tax filings and whatnot, and also allied areas such as investments, and we've started to do provide wealth tech kind of products as well. We serve roughly 50,000 chartered accountants and 3,000 enterprises directly on business taxation related things, which deal with GST, electronic invoicing, e-way bills, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, we sit on two broad trends that we see kind of at least in the India around us. The first trend is that of digitization that's coming from multiple sides, everything from geo to the government forcing some of the digital moves, and second is compliance, right? So we sit on the intersection of those two trends, and as we were asked, we are a fintech company, so our whole existence is fintech. So happy to kind of touch on various elements of that. Anything, Prasar, in particular would you like me to touch, or is that kind of good?
No, I think that's kind of good, Rohit. I think just a quick understanding of what you're doing and how fintech plays an important role. Of course, as we go around the panel, we'd like to understand how fintech is impacting business. And with that, I'd like to kind of come to Vinit from Mindtree. Hi, Vinit. Thank you for being on the panel today. I think you have a unique perspective as well on it, because as a software company, as a technology company, I think both in terms of as a business that's impacted by fintech and a business that can impact fintech, I'm sure you're seeing a great amount of change in the way business is being done. So we'd love to hear a little bit about you and Mindtree and the perspective on fintech from a business point of view.
Thanks, Prasar. Good morning, and thanks for inviting me on this panel discussion. I hope all the panelists, co-panelists, and the attendees are safe and sound in this unprecedented times. So just a quick background, working as the Chief Financial Officer for Mindtree. Mindtree, as probably many of you might know, we are a technology partner in driving down the digital transformation of clients globally. We are more than 22 years now into this business. We are now 2 years back. We have become a part and parcel of Larsen & Toubro being our parent company. So it's a $21 billion conglomerate across multiple geographies into various businesses. As a part of my Mindtree, we do service the banking, financial services, and the insurance sector. And I can only say that the digitization, as Rohit rightly said, is at the forefront of any business, any company, whatever might be their background, with how long and how bad they were in the past, doesn't matter. Today, if they are not digital, I think so they are significantly behind their competition or in terms of their existence. A couple of few things that we are looking as a trends that are happening in the banking financial services industry are first is the contactless banking. I think so we all had an mobile apps through which the banking was done, but now if you look at it is getting extended to even financial services, it is getting extended to insurance. The customer interaction is completely digital. You don't need to visit a branch or any of the offices of the organization to go open your account, get your KYC done, submit the documents. Everything can be done at a click of a button. And I think so that's the trend that is changing. One of the things that is benefiting as a part of this whole digital journey is the fact that it is increasing the spectrum of the people who are not accessible or available to the various banking and loans and other channels that were available. So the spectrum of the audience is definitely increasing. The second part which is happening is the speed and the cost at which these transactions are being done is significantly decreasing. And earlier, everything which was happening probably on a couple of days sort of a lag now is happening on a real-time basis. And I would say these are the few trends that we are seeing as a change that is happening, and you will see more and more happening in the coming years.
All right, thank you for that perspective, Vinit. That really helps us. I'd like to jump now to Mayank. Mayank, hi, how are you? Thank you for being on the panel. Of course, when we look at NEC, there's a whole broad spectrum of industries and solutions, services, and products that you offer, and therefore you have a very broad global view in terms of how fintech is changing the world, but also how fintech is integrating in some of the stuff that you're doing, and how some of the stuff that you're doing is integrating into fintech. So we'd love to hear a little more about you, what NEC is up to these days, and especially from a fintech perspective.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Prasar. And again, great to be part of this forum. I think it's a very renowned news agency and the tutorial, and I think we are very happy to be partnering with you in terms of this initiative. Again, I hope all the panelists and the people who are listening to the whole discussion, I think they are doing well and safe and absorbing all the protocols which are needed. A quick introduction, Prasar, as you briefly mentioned. So I kind of lead the finance function and supply chain function for NEC Corporation India. NEC, again, India is part of the global conglomerate NEC. We have around 28 billion of revenue globally, and we operate into multiple segments across, right? So from telecommunication to transportation to aviation to public safety to logistics. So there are multiple segments. We are present not only in India, but globally. Like fintech is again an area where we have companies operating, right? So the topic cannot be more apt, right, in terms of what's happening and the whole transformation which is happening with multiple companies around digitization, the journey which everybody is kind of going through. And the COVID has actually, I will say again, pushed that into a much alarming level, that if somebody was not thinking, they have to think on immediately. So that's where I think what we are seeing with this whole COVID and the fintech advancement which has happened, it has helped to create or to expedite the framework creation around digitization. In past, definitely there were gaps, but with this COVID impact and where we see fintech again playing an important role, the gap or the infrastructure gap in digitization is being bridged very quickly, right? So this then gives companies like us a very good platform to start rolling some of the solutions which we have globally, get that into India, and also increase our reach. As I've said, we do a lot of different partnership with different partners in different areas. Fintech definitely is one, and banking companies, payment companies one, but we also are actually partnered in this inclusion journey of fintech by partnering with CSC, one of our partners, where we actually are also an investor. where we have taken this journey to small cities, small towns in India in form of our BLE, which are present there and are catering to small rural areas also. And due to this transformation, which is now expedited, we see a lot of demand again coming from these areas also, that they want to be part of this transformation. They want to kind of join the journey. So I think with Fintech advancing very fast, we actually are partnering with them in a lot of different areas, and the technology which we play in, the expertise which we have around AI, blockchain, ML, all those things we are using as a combination to reach to maximum Indians. Wherever we think there is still more opportunity to penetrate, we are focusing on that.
All right, thank you, Mayank. That's it's a wonderful view into what's happening around the world, especially with some of these emerging technologies. And I think very pertinent to now get Deepak into the conversation. I think Ftcash is looking at a segment which traditionally has been, if not unbanked, but less banked. And access to credit, access to technology is going to only help them become grow bigger and stronger. So we'd love to understand a little more about how Ftcash is leveraging fintech to fulfill its goals.
Thanks, Prasar. And you're spot on to say that as a fintech, we sit at the intersection of payments and lending. We're catering to a segment of the underserved neighborhood merchants, who typically have not been served from a banking as well as a lending perspective. So I'll just take an example to say, how we're trying to reimagine lending into, making products which are simple, more suited and specific for this segment. When you look at a loan today, right, typically every loan given to segments are, standard EMI-driven loans, whether it's a car loan, home loan, or an unsecured business loan. Now that makes absolute sense for somebody, who's drawing a paycheck. Absolute sense for somebody, who has a large organization where a finance manager is managing the cash flows. But for somebody like your neighborhood Kirana store, right? I mean, imagine the situation where he makes money every day and the bank says that you save for 30 days in a month and we're going to come on the 1st and we're going to collect our EMI. And that is where you're basically propping him up for failure. So what we've done is basically we've created products that are suited for this segment. We've married them in a way in which, we're able to assess risk at a much faster pace, which is what we do. We've done daily loan products. And we've basically said that, for every loan that we do, we install a POS machine. So when you walk into your neighborhood store and you pay him using a QR code, you pay him using a POS machine, what basically happens is a small sliver out of that moves very seamlessly, effortlessly, without Mr. Gupta having to do anything towards the repayment of his loan. It basically inculcates the habit which, all of us have been told about saving, investing, you do SIPs. We've just taken that back into lending. And we've said that, we've got to match the cash flows. I mean, what comes in has to have a matching of going out. So in a nutshell, we are trying to, today we cater to almost 40,000 plus merchants where we process both payments and do lending to this segment.
All right, thanks, Deepak. That's thanks for those interesting insights. So let me now circle back to Rohit. Rohit, of course, we heard about you talking about ClearTax has now evolved to Clear, and you're getting into multiple segments now. Now, I think one of the key factors that's impacting the way all of us is doing business is this whole evolution of currency itself, right? Whether you're looking at digital currency as a future, cryptocurrency. I'm kind of skeptical about the speculative nature of cryptocurrency, but I think all of those things apart, the key thing that it brings on the ground is that being based on blockchain, etc., it's going to change the way for example transactions are recorded. It's going to be able to reduce obviously the risk and the fraud in the system, but it's also going to, for example, improve the way tax administration happens, right? And therefore, then in together with other financial technologies, it's going to be able to help change completely the way business is administered, the way, for example, invoices are done, how bookkeeping is done. So how do you see your business model? How do you see overall the business environment evolving to match up with that? And what are the opportunities do you see in the market from that perspective?
Yeah, so Prasar, I think great question. I think you're 100% right that the concept of currency itself, I mean, if you think about, if you define currency as something that should be, accepted by multiple people to trade multiple things, right? So I think that concept has been changing at multiple levels, right? I see, firstly, at a very simple level, I see a lot more people very comfortable with FX, using various amounts of FX with the right hedgings and so on. These tools used to be very exotic earlier. Now, I think even smaller companies, as soon as they start, they kind of know that, hey, these tools are available, right? So firstly, they're not tied to just, INR, right? Secondly, I think how in our business, the fundamental currency that we deal with, right, is invoice, right? Because we deal a lot with GST and e-invoicing. And we believe invoice, if you see, I think a lot of people understand the whole UPI side of things, right? Which is the payment side of things. Not as many people understand what is, and UPI is obviously a product of NPCI, right? Which is the nodal authority. A lot of people don't understand the whole GSTN and NIC side of things as deeply, and how they have laid out now invoice rails, just like UPI has laid out payment rails, right? So as invoices become interoperable, right, they themselves become a tradable security. I think what we are trying to do now is how do we make invoices interoperable, especially with the factoring bill coming in last week, right? How do we make, not necessarily bringing, crypto or anything. I think that I'll talk about that in a minute. But how do you make an invoice interoperable, and anybody who wants to purchase it, right, can purchase it for whatever discount, right? If that happens, then I think it'll just unlock a whole lot of value for a large number of customers, and that's what we are trying to do in our next phase of growth, right? Now, the third thing that you mentioned about crypto and smart contracts and so on, I think they are also around the corner. I think there is some, I would say, regulatory clarity that can help over a period of time. We have seen the government, the Supreme Court, and so on go back and forth. I think most people now understand blockchain is here to stay, but I count me at least at a personal level, even if not at an institutional level, like a big believer in at least some of the larger cryptocurrencies. Just like you have had currencies fail, similarly you'd have crypto fail, right? But the larger things will stay, and they are meant as digital economy native currencies, right? You can do on Bitcoin what you can go to a level which is like 100th of a rupee and so on, right? You can trade at that level with minimal friction, right, over a period of time. So I think that is the future, but I would leave that aside from our discussion today because that'll become too esoteric. But I would say regular, if we can just get normal invoices, right, which can be traded in the economy, I think with a lot of security and convenience, I think that itself will cause a huge, I would say, positive in the economy.
Sure. Thanks for those inputs, Rohit. Makes a lot of sense. Also, just before this session, I was the previous session. Somebody was saying that we should have a bill discounting exchange in this country, so that obviously access to liquidity can become better. And obviously, it's a great idea. And I think a lot of these things start intersecting. I'll obviously come back on some of these points to Deepak as we circle back to him later. But for the moment, let me come back to Vinit. Vinit, obviously Mindtree, of course, caters to large enterprise clients, and obviously with the whole fintech revolution, the way currency is changing, the requirement for the kind of transaction infrastructure that needs to be put in place. The opportunity is huge, but also then the management of data. Obviously the way cloud infrastructure needs to work, the kind of security that needs to be there, kind of automation that needs to be there, right? How do you see these both as a challenge and an opportunity overall for the domain and for technology businesses like yourself? Vinit, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for that question. I think so. Technology, the way I look at it is, it's no longer an enabler; it's a business driver. Banks are continuously on the lookout for new technologies to improve the efficiency, the speed of service, as well as provide the better customer experience into their day-to-day operations. Now, one of the things which I wanted to really say in this is that if you take an example of cloud is not a new concept. It has been in existence for quite a while. It was supposed to bring down the impact of the cost on companies' P&L. But in the initial period, obviously the volume didn't come. The security aspect was unknown. People wanted everything customized. So the adoption was becoming very, very difficult. And obviously it was expensive, no doubts about it. But the fact is, what we have seen in the last couple of years, and particularly after the pandemic, is that the adoption of the cloud has become a bare necessity. even if it probably means a little bit of expensive, and even the cost will come down. I'm not denying that fact, but it has become a bare necessity, because what is happening is, one, you get a big amount of agility, you get a big amount of security. Some of these factors which me at an individual level don't become cannot control or cannot really dominate, because these are every real time evolving. So cloud gives me a great extent and takes away that responsibility. So it has become a bare necessity. Yes, it has also taken away the impact from what I used to call it as a capex to what now we call it as an opex. It becomes you pay as you use, and that's where it is moving around. And the third aspect, what it's becoming is intelligent automation is becoming a part and parcel of fintech's daily operation to drive down efficiency, eliminate repetition, improve the customer satisfaction. Most of the standard tasks, such as customer onboarding processes, account opening, loan processing, etc., I think so everything is now become digital, and the speed at which it is being done or the compliance that is needed to make it happen has completely. So you'll see an exponential increase as an advantage of it, an exponential increase in the volumes, and a substantial decrease in the cost per transaction, if you want to look at it. Yes, the people who are probably entering this for the first time may find that it is impacting their P&L compared to what their capex spend would have determined. But it's a beginning, and it's here to stay. So that's the positive part of it, I would say. And the negative part, at the end of the day, as the requirement and adoption of cloud becomes more and more, there are going to be more and more servers that are going to be put in globally. It is going to create a certain amount of impact on the sustainability initiatives of many organizations, but it's still better than having those individual pockets of servers, data centers into various parts of the world. It's better to have it in this format.
Right. Very interesting. Very interesting. I think, these are very interesting times. It's a Chinese proverb, may you live in interesting times, but people say it was said as a curse. I'm not sure whether, we were living in, positively interesting times or cursed times, but they are certainly interesting. Just to that last point, I was reading something, in light of the whole, satellite internet revolution that seems to be coming next year. That people said, why don't we put servers on the moon, or why don't we, have an international server station or something? That might just help with the, sustainability initiatives, because space is ultimately a giant heat sink. But the whole idea of somebody that we were speaking to a couple of weeks back said, the future is digital, mobile, and millennial. And I think, Mayank, when we look at NEC, at least from my perspective, I see artificial intelligence, I see 5G, I see biometrics as the key buzzwords, right? And I think all of these fintech and digital, mobile, millennial, the whole troika kind of comes together. So how do we kind of leverage all these evolving technologies to create a whole new paradigm for money, and how do we use fintech in conjunction with some of these technologies to benefit businesses and the society in general? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, and sure, you hit the nail right. Means this is where the future trend is clearly taking us, right? 5G is coming. So the way we see from NEC perspective is 5G will be virtualized, right? Now the whole infrastructure which we had in 4G, 5G is at a different scale, right? From latency perspective, from the capacity, and from the security. So the combination of what 5G provides, right? And we start adding AI, big data, right, to those solutions, and then put the fintech top line to all of that. That creates a very powerful solution, right? For the future trend perspective, I will say, right? And then you get your biometric, your facial recognition, right? Think like we are working, for example, on a project where you will not be required to swipe your card anywhere, right? You will just use your facial or eye contact and get access to wherever you have, for example, credit cards, right? So that's the direction in technology I think we are moving in. But for that, I think, as I've said, some very important areas will be, again, the security, the speed, and the AI, big data, blockchain. Instead of they being kind of an optional aspects, they will become a necessity in all these future applications, right? So that's how we are seeing, and that's when we also see these things advancing very far places, like remote places in India, right? Where today also the speed is a challenge, the the infrastructure is challenged. So 5G in combination with a lot of these aspects will kind of provide a way forward from the technology perspective.
All right, that that makes a lot of sense, Mayank. Thanks for those inputs. So, I think then the perspective then we look at from a small business perspective, or the underserved, underbanked kind of section of the society. Now, Deepak, obviously you work with merchants, but there's a lot of individuals also that could benefit from things like that. So, obviously it's not like we're having a discussion about what all further Ftcash could probably look at, but just from the perspective of someone who's looking at that strata of society, right? How do you see, obviously in terms of businesses at least leveraging the kind of stuff, for example, that Mayank was talking about, or what Rohit was earlier talking about, invoice discounting, for example, because in a way you're doing reverse invoice discounting from what you run. But can we offer these kind of things, to businesses to kind of scale up faster? Can we leverage the whole digital mobile revolution to scale up faster? And how do we bring betterment to the lives of these people by bringing fintech into play faster and probably at greater scale?
Absolutely. Prasad, I'd just like to add a little bit to what everybody said. So, Mayank talked about the fact that, payments is going to become seamless, and it's already happening as we speak. So Amazon in the US is moving with biometric payments where you can simply make the payment. So it's no longer a concept which is going to happen in the future. So, I was very, very, keenly hearing Rohit talk about the fact that, invoices is a form of currency. And if you look back 6 years, right, or even further than that, bill discounting has always been around, but it has just been a very cumbersome process for a financial institution to actually do it. So bills used to move physically. And this is a big problem for MSMEs. And I think somebody in the last panel spoke about it. And you can actually see the rails being laid out now as we speak, the Treads platform, which is there, the GSTN, which Rohit spoke about, and the consent architecture, where a large institution can consent that, and the escrow mechanisms can be put in place where seamlessly, terms of trade can be applied to actually make sure that an invoice, which is actually, illiquid cash today, can be converted into currency and real hard cash for somebody at the click of a few buttons. Talking about our merchant segment, right? I mean, the underserved MSMEs, right? Like you rightly put it. I mean, the last 12 to 18 months have been very hard on this segment. Some of the large corporates obviously, have larger roots, so they've been able to withstand the onslaught of the pandemic. But this segment obviously has been, largely impacted because, as we all know, working capital cycles for some of these guys are much, let's say, stretched, and a lot of times they do not have cash reserves as big as, let's say, some of the larger organizations. Some of the areas where, we're really keenly working on is supply chain finance. For example, that, let's say, there is a Ganesh Chaturthi coming, there's going to be a spike in demand. If you're able to meet this guy's supply capital requirement at that point in time, basically ensuring that he's able to stock up better for that particular 2-month period, you're going to be able to help him increase his revenue. Things like these, are possible today because of technology, because of the availability of data, because of the availability of ensuring that, money is getting used towards the end use and not really going into the bank account of an individual merchant. I think for us, like you said it at the start, it's the interesting times. I keep referring to this quote of A Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. It was the season of happiness, it was the season of despair. So for us, from that perspective, I think just the speed at which things are moving, it's unbelievable because, I think Vinit spoke about the fact that payments today are happening at the blink of an eyelid. Those same payments, could actually take 2-3 days. If you look at it from that perspective, that's almost, a 5 to 10% efficiency. If you look at it from a monthly cash flow perspective, a 3-day gain over a 30-day period. So I think, from a fintech, I would say that, India is really blazing ahead in terms of, what some of the ecosystem drivers have been able to put in place. The NPCI, UPI that we spoke about, I mean, when we look at the rural ecosystem, right? I mean, some of these things which are coming in place, like the Aadhaar-enabled payment system, it is beautiful because it just ensures that the bank today, and I've been to some of these rural banks. It's appalling that there are queues of people who are just waiting to withdraw 100, 200, 500,000 rupees. Some of them just waiting to get their bank passbooks updated. And now all of that can be done by people, entrepreneurs who want to be banking correspondents, at the doorstep of the people, ensuring that there is a matching, so your neighborhood kirana store could actually become your bank, where you could go and withdraw cash as well as deposit cash. And it works brilliantly because, think about it. Your neighborhood guy currently takes cash from you, goes to a bank and deposits it, and then you go to that bank and withdraw that cash. If you could do that same thing with him, suddenly the bank is there, but it's just invisible.
No, I think makes a lot of sense. And, I think interestingly, you said that, the speed at which things are changing is unbelievable. While that's true, I think some of the things that are happening is also unbelievable, right? So, you've got stuff like NFT that's happening. And while you were talking, I was wondering, whether we should, while invoices are a currency, can we also make invoices into NFTs, right? Can I then start crafting, beautiful looking invoices and start making them into NFTs? Or, with Ganesh Chaturthi coming up, can we make some of the Ganesh mandals into NFTs and, make all of this into a completely different version of fintech? But yeah, I think, very interesting things that you also spoke about is about the whole, being able to withdraw cash with the merchant, right? I still remember I was I visited Australia, when I was a student many years ago, and they had the system called FPOS, electronic fund transfer at point of sale. You could just, if you're buying something for $20, you could say just swipe it for $80 and give me $60 cash. And for the life of me, I haven't understood why haven't we done that in India till now, right? But ATMs are so few. When I was in college, we had an SBI branch in our campus, which and we were kids. We used to go and withdraw $100 every second day. We used to take a check and say $100, and that time the ATM wasn't there in the branch, and they said that, oh no, minimum $1,000 or you come only once a week. So I think a lot of those things are changing. So let me stick with you for a moment there, Deepak. So from the perspective of all of this that we're talking about, the Jam Trinity and the whole digital India and a lot of things that are coming globally as well, what are the three key things that you see will change the way, and not just related to, for example, what you do, but three key things in fintech which will change the way that business happens, that how people's lives can be impacted by businesses over the next 5 or 10 years. What is going to be the lasting impact of fintech? The things that will develop in the next 10 years which will have a lasting impact. So just the three key points.
So smart contracts, I think they're here to stay. They're an excellent value proposition. It removes all the mundane things that one has to do. Just to take an example of my own self, right? I've put my rent payment on an auto payment. Something which I used to do every month earlier on an NEFT, which I used to do before that by giving checks to my landlord, is now something which, I don't do at all. I've set it up. It's not just going to happen seamlessly. The second piece, which I think is really going to change things, and I think, this is something which Rohit and the team are working at, is zero tax returns. There is a whole segment of people, and this obviously requires government regulation, but I think it's a possible reality, especially the salaried class. All the information for them, is available with the government in known domains. There could be systems, institutions that could just simply collect this information and remove the need for these people to actually go ahead and file, even once a year, or there could be institutions that say, we'll just do it, you just connect to us, you give us access to your bank statements, you give us access to your everything, and it's just going to be seamless. There are certain countries, I was really surprised when I went to the UK and I was speaking to a friend who works for the NHS. And I said, hey, have you filed your tax returns? And he looked at me and he's like, what tax returns? It just comes to me deducted.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with the government after that. I think the third thing, you spoke about currency. I think, I don't think that the governments will be early adopters of, cryptocurrency, because it threatens them, because it reduces their control. And obviously there is the whole angle of, the economy not being, governed, etc. Things like that, which are, let's say, something which the governments are scared of. But I think stable coins are here to stay. And increasingly, we will see governments, central banks adopt stable coins. We are hearing of that in the US, we are hearing of that in China, and we are hearing of that in India. And I think this is, the single most, game changer from a currency perspective that you will have, wherein you will see that governments will realize the value of a stable coin, and how some people spoke about the fact that you can break it down 100, and obviously the whole transaction processing cost can be eliminated completely. To my mind, just these three things.
Right. No, I think very interesting. I think I completely agree with that last proposition that you talked about, right? It's stable coins and digital currencies that will stay, because just the superficial and speculative nature of cryptocurrency is going to bring it, brings in a lot of risk, and I'm not sure it will work. But, I also have a similar anecdote around the tax bill, right? It's something that either UK took as a legacy from Hong Kong, or it's a legacy that UK brought to Hong Kong. But I remember setting up something in Hong Kong about 15 years back, and the same thing happened. We're saying we asked, what's the cycle for filing, tax returns? They said, you don't have to file a tax return. The government will send you a tax bill. I'm like, that's something different. So I think we're hearing a little bit of that happening now. And I'm sure Rohit will kind of give us a little more ideas when we come back to him. But before, we circle back to the rest of the panel, Mayank, what's your take on the top three things that will change the way, that how fintech will change the way we live?
Yeah, so I will start with adding one more point on currency, right? I think we've discussed stable coins, we've discussed crypto. I think one thing which I think will increase, and I think RBI is working, many other central banks are working, is central bank digital currency, right? So I think that's the area which we will have to watch and then see how it goes, because it is, I think the crypto and central bank digital currency are going to coexist. So I think that's one trend which we'll have to watch carefully, but it's going to go, and that also means the physical currency importance is going to come down, right? So that's again very clear. Again, related to that is the digital banking, right? So I see that also increasing significantly, right? Means the need of going to a bank is going to reduce a lot, and this fintech kind of, instead of competition, will come hand in hand with the bank, right? So it will be kind of a together go to market and joint go to market versus competition. So that's clearly one trend which we can see. And then, as I've already mentioned, right, the combination of 5G together with blockchain, AML, I think this is going to be the future, right? So that's clearly a trend. And together with some of the other biometrics technology, I think that's where we see things moving very quickly.
Yeah, no, I think, great point about reducing the need to go to the bank. But I think, with all these neo banks coming up, the question is also, why do you even need a bank? You could just be a digital address where, all your money and your assets can be parked, and somebody just, provides you the infrastructure to manage it. And, so I think we're looking at some very interesting developments in that segment. But I think a lot of points that you said make a lot of sense. So thanks for that, Mayank. Let me come to Vinit. So Vinit, what are your thoughts in terms of, and especially from an enterprise perspective, how large enterprises could, for example, make a difference to the way we live using fintech? And you work with a lot of clients, and you would have seen interesting initiatives that are being taken. So we'd love to hear your perspective as well.
Yeah, I think so. I concur with most of the things which my co-panelists mentioned, and there are many we can keep on talking about it. But let me just bring in 2-3. While crypto probably is not the best word in terms of the people would like to have it on their any of their financials or anything, but I think so the technology behind it, which is the blockchain technology, is I think so going to be at forefront. And remember what has happened with blockchain technology 5-6 years back. If you wanted to have any of your blockchain technology platform, it was a massive capital expenditure. Now it is available like a service. You can have your APIs, you can integrate it, and things will happen. So basically all your hard assets or paper assets, let's say called sort of hard paper assets, are going to get digitized. What I call it as a tokenization. So, everything is available in a form of digital wallet. Your entire net worth you can carry in your pocket and sort of trade the things across the table, probably using a blockchain technology. So that's one part of it. The second part, which I see significantly, is just extending the point which the earlier panelist mentioned, is about having a real-time exchange. You talk about anything that has volume and capacity, can be traded on an exchange. Right now, if you look at it, it's either the equity assets or the sort of financial assets, or the what you can call as the other alternative assets like the oil, the water, and the gold, etc. Hard metals. These are the assets. But now anything that can become sort of a need of the hour, or has the importance of the hour, and has a volume capacity, can be bought on an exchange, and the trading can happen depending upon how the buyers and sellers. And the most important part, what is going to happen in this is price discovery is going to be a real-time price discovery. So these are some of the this is the other thing which I would say is an important thing. The third part, and this is more probably from a country like India perspective, is it's going to have growth in microcredits, or I would even take it one step ahead and call it as a nano credits. There is a whole nano economy that is sort of getting developed, whereby everybody has an access to sort of, I would say, financial channels or digital channels across the table. As rightfully said, we don't need to go, and we don't need probably a bank. It can be any of the sort of a digital or a physical asset that is nearby to your house. You can go, and whereby you can do the trading, exchange, whatever is needed to satisfy your financial needs. I think so. This is going to be definitely an important milestone in a country like India. And these I believe are some of the trends, and these are some of where the first two which I mentioned are definitely where we are seeing a lot of global large conglomerates already started investing and be doing a lot of work around it. And some of the technology enablers, which like the 5Gs, etc., are just going to boost it.
Sure. I think, makes a lot of sense. I think the whole idea of having your entire assets in your pocket, it's always been interesting, but, now, of course, with blockchain, etc., coming in, the security that it brings in, and then, the whole idea of then being able to give people universal access to real-time exchanges, that can be a complete game changer. So I think we're just about to come to the end of our session. So we'll wrap up with Rohit. So Rohit, let's get your perspective on what are the three key things. Obviously, tax and invoices, etc., seem to be, a great theme around, changes that can come in. But, going beyond those, what are the three key game changers that you see that fintech brings in to our lives over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so I think I would like to talk from just from business perspective and not as much from consumer perspective, because we deal honestly a lot more with businesses. So I think just a context that I would like to first bring is that the consumer side digitization, right, is very well understood around the world now, right? And in India, we've seen it play out over the last 7-8 years, right? I think business digitization is just not understood. It's actually changing at a phenomenal pace. The same things that are driving the consumer market is also driving the business market, right? So the cloud, the mobile, the social, right? The only extra thing that comes in with businesses is security, right? Once you have these 3 or 4 enablers, actually a lot of things are happening. And then government on top of it is pushing because of their own, I think, demand for revenue or their own need for revenue, right? So government is pushing digitization and so on. Now, with these 3 things, I think that the big trends that I see is the first is very meritocratic capital. Like what I mean by that is currently capital goes to people who own assets, right? I think the more you can prove over a longer period of time that, hey, I can prove that my business deserves more capital. I am more, I can create, ROCE and ROI on my deployment, right? The capital will start to flow to them, right? As opposed to I have a house, I have a, plant and so give me more capital, right? So I think that is a very, I would say, antiquated concept that's going to go away over a period of time, right? Second is, I think, just deepening of industry, right? As kind of, banking starts to become much more, I remember like everybody used to be in Bombay just because the banks are there, right? It's a horrible place to do business actually, right? Nobody really kind of, falls in love with Bombay other than, a very small percentage of people, right? So I think the question should be, why should not, more businesses be built out of Coimbatore, out of Mysore, out of a lot of these places where there's more, I would say much easier availability of land, employees and so on can be happier there and so on. I think the deepening of industry will happen, and as opposed to people chasing banks, I think banks will chase customers now at this point of time, right? Third is just like, I would say like API based banking, right? I think bank accounts limitations. I think a lot of our panelists mentioned, there's a lot of friction around it, right? And which is now becoming obsolete because of API banking, right? Now, I don't see as many banks moving towards this. Whether that is hubris or whether that is institutionalized lethargy, time will tell, right? But you can see now, one after the other, banks will have to go there, right? And the banks are basically designed for raising large liabilities through CASA or whatever means, and to do secured assets, right? But the economy sees that as like 20% of the game, right? So I think, how do they kind of provide access to their CASA or access to the capital that they raise through fintechs, right? I think those will be the three big things, at least in my mind. And each of these strains, I think, will create 10, 20, $50 billion companies, right? We are seeing in our front of our eyes, PhonePe has become like, whatever, $5 to $10 billion company in a matter of 5 years, right? I think once some of these assets start to become 10, 20, $30 billion assets, right? That's when banks will realize that we can't have hubris against them, right? We are probably inferior to them, right? And they are closer to the customer, right? So I think that's when, people will realize, boardrooms will realize that, you can't piss on these guys for too long.
All right. I think makes a lot of sense. And, I think although given that I've grown up in Bombay, I might not agree to that point of yours, but it's all right. I think everyone to their own. I think you should talk to Delhi walas about Delhi then, right? So, but thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you taking the time and giving us these great insights. Of course, the kind of topic that we're talking about, we could talk for 4 hours and we could still be short of time. But, we'll probably circle back to each one of you, sometime in the near future to have a much more granular discussion around these and many other topics. So thank you for that great discussion, and we appreciate you being here, and see you soon again.